Scales, fur, feathers, and flesh. Exploring the bonds between worlds. Written by James Mahu. Chapter 1. In the shimmering expanses where the celestial realms of the phoenix and dragon worlds brushed against each other every 12,000 years, a meeting of two improbable beings unfolded. Oriole, a phoenix of extraordinary beauty, whose feathers glowed with the subtle colors of dawn and dusk, found herself unexpectedly traversing the veil between worlds. Opposite her stood Obsidian, a formidable dragon whose scales gleamed with the darkness of midnight and whose amber-colored eyes burned with an intense, calculating fire. He too, suddenly and without any premonition, found himself transported to a strange place where phoenix and dragon could meet, talk, consort, and otherwise gain an understanding of their uniqueness. The trick was to understand their uniqueness and yet remain unafraid of it. Fear was a repulsion to understanding. This grand cycle that brought two apex species together was the way myth was kept alive and gave curiosity and imagination their rightful place in both the heart and mind. Their encounter was as unexpected as it was profound, and from the moment their eyes met, sparks flew, quite literally. In Oriole's case, embers danced around her with the flicker of her wings. Obsidian's very breath held the sparks of fire. How these two worlds suddenly conjoined was a mystery. The two beings, one a phoenix and the other a dragon, met for the first time, only aware of the other from myths and ancient tales that withstood time's gravity. As far as they knew, their species had never occupied the same space or time, until now. Oriole regarded Obsidian with a curious mixture of fascination and wariness, her vibrant eyes reflecting the ever-shifting colors of her plumage.
How did this happen?
She exclaimed, her voice a melodic trill that echoed through the ether.
I never imagined I would find myself in the company of a dragon. I was just going about my day and suddenly I was swept away in some kind of a spinning light or something.
She looked around, shaking her head.
Somehow this light brought me here, and not only am I lost and disoriented, but I have no idea how to return to my world.
She paused briefly and pointed at the dragon.
Did you conjure me?
Obsidian shook his head, staring at Oriole with a calculating gaze, his sharp claws flexing against the celestial terrain as she spoke.
Nor did I expect to encounter a phoenix in my domain,
he replied, his voice a deep, rumbling growl that reverberated throughout the rock-covered hills of their surroundings.
Tell me, bird of fire, what brings you to the realm of dragons?
Oriole's feathers ruffled slightly at the dragon's blunt question, but she maintained her composure, her gaze steady and unwavering.
How do you know that you are not in my domain, the kingdom of phoenixes?
She replied. Obsidian's lips curled into a sly smirk, revealing rows of gleaming teeth.
Ah, but that is the question, isn't it?
He mused, his eyes narrowing with suspicion.
It seems we have stumbled upon a mystery as to why you have come to my world. You just exclaimed that you are both lost and disoriented. How should we proceed?
As they spoke, a subtle tension hung in the air between them, the clash of their contrasting energies crackling like lightning in the celestial ether. Oriole represented the boundless vitality of life and renewal, while Obsidian embodied the relentless pursuit of power and control. Though they stood on opposite sides of the cosmic divide, an undeniable fascination drew them together, an equal and opposite repulsion.
Tell me, bird of fire.
My name is Oriole.
Then tell me, Oriole,
Obsidian continued, his voice low and commanding.
It is said that phoenixes believe that they came before dragons? Is that so?
Oriel pondered the dragon's question for a moment, her mind swirling with the mysteries of time and existence.
It is said that phoenixes are creatures of eternal rebirth.
She replied.
Are dragons eternal?
Obsidian regarded her answer as dismissive and snorted a short burst of fire from his nostrils.
We have no interest in fairy tales. We are masters of our world. There is no one above us. We, the various dragon clans, decide what we are and what we are not. Besides, to try and live in eternity is a fool's errand.
Oriel slowly shook her head. Her beak opened and then closed.
I see. Well, I think we can agree then that the first phoenix arrived well before the first dragon. I mean, you just said so yourself. We are the unborn. In our world, there was nothing, and then there was everything. Are you familiar with a spark?
She asked.
Of course.
That's how it happened in our world. Someone created a spark, and we all arrived at that very instant, as if a massive fire suddenly consumed the spark.
Obsidian demurred. Oriel continued.
Our planet and all life upon her gave birth to all of us in the same instant. There was no time. Do you have time in your world?
How can you have no time? You're not telling the truth.
Obsidian thrust his face closer to Oriel.
Are you? Perhaps you're here to undermine dragonhood.
He began to pace, his full attention on Oriel.
How dare you come to my world and lie to me? To us.
He was a much larger creature than Oriel, and she cowered a little as he raised himself up and opened his wings, which spanned over 20 meters.
I am not lying, and yet every part of me in this instant regards you as a threat. Why are you trying to intimidate me?
It is our law. Liars are punished severely. But I'm afraid our punishments will be too severe for the likes of your delicate kind. You would not survive.
But you see, we have the fortunate ability to resurrect ourselves. As I said before, we are creatures of eternal rebirth. You cannot kill me, at least not permanently.
Is that so?
He snarled.
Perhaps you would let me test your assertion?
It's not pleasant to be killed, so no, you may not test that fact.
At some point in their conversation, it became obvious that the two creatures, isolated from others of their kind, were somehow representatives, like two species who, for the first time, met one another, and they, Oriel and Obsidian, were the first emissaries.
Have you considered that we are simply having a shared dream?
Oriel asked, her tone neutral.
I have not.
It is possible. In my world, the simplest explanation is best. A shared dream is the simplest explanation, particularly if you consider that otherwise, our worlds must have become intertwined somehow in this very space, and for that to happen, I have no explanation whatsoever.
Do you think it's any different for me?
Obsidian grumbled. As much as a phoenix can squint its eyes, Oriel did so, and as she did, she also tilted her head, staring up into the amber eyes of the dragon.
I haven't the foggiest notion of how you perceive this event. How could I? You're a dragon. You are temporal. You are very much unlike me, or my kind.
Have you ever had a shared dream before?
Obsidian asked. Oriel shook her head. Obsidian smiled the thinnest of smiles.
Then how is it that this hypothesis is the simplest explanation? I can tell you from my experience, I have no experience with shared dreams. Thus, for my part, your hypothesis has become even more complex and therefore more unlikely.
We understand each other,
Oriel said.
Do you speak the language of the phoenix? I know for a fact that I do not know the language of the dragon. Only in a dream can I speak another's language.
While that may be true,
The dragon lamented.
it is possible that we both speak the same tongue. There are myths in my world that talk about our meetings in earlier times, Perhaps we shared a language then, and it has continued to this very day.
Oriole found herself nodding.
Perhaps you're right, but if you disagree with me about this whole thing simply being a shared dream, how could we test its validity?
Well, if it's a dream, we wake up when something bad happens. That could be our test.
Something bad happens?
Oriole repeated slowly.
What are you suggesting?
You are the one creature of eternal rebirth. It seems fitting that whatever we decide is bad, it should definitely happen to you.
The massive head of the dragon bobbed just as he said the last word.
Let's see if I have this right.
Oriole said.
You're saying that if I were to be killed, let's just say that before I actually died, I would wake up from this presumed dreamland, and all would be well. And of course, should it turn out not to be a dream, I would simply resurrect myself.
Precisely.
The huge dragon's head nodded up and down, creating enough turbulence to ruffle Oriole's feathers.
That is one method. Let me suggest another with its accompanying rationale.
Oriole paused, collecting her thoughts and taking in a deep breath.
It is quite evident that I am in your world, not the other way around, because there is a foreign time and space here, one that I have never felt before, even in my dreams. Thus, to me, every tiny bit of this world is completely novel.
She looked around with inquisitive eyes as she spoke, her voice lowered.
You have offered twice now that you, in the interest of knowledge, would be willing to kill me. And if it weren't for the fact that everything in this world is different from my own, I might submit to this offer. But here, in this foreign place, I am not so confident I would be able to resurrect myself. So I politely decline your otherwise generous offer to solve the puzzle we both find ourselves in.
She continued.
However, I did suggest that I had an alternative, and that alternative is that you would allow me to, well, let's say, hurt you sufficiently to cause you to wake up.
She looked away for a moment, pretending to pause, but really, she was unsure of how Obsidian would react to her suggestion. Dragons were famous for taking an insult and reacting violently. She didn't want her expression to add fuel to what could be a testy response from a stranger that happened to be a fire-breathing dragon at least 10 times her size. Obsidian laughed for a few moments.
You cannot hurt me.
His entire body recoiled in perplexity.
Do you see these scales? They're impenetrable. Your puny powers, such as they are, cannot possibly wake me up from a dream. So I don't see how that will solve our dilemma.
You're probably right.
Oriole said.
How's your hearing?
Perfect, as are all of my other senses.
She lowered her head into her chest.
Can you hear this?
She whispered.
Of course.
You do have excellent hearing.
Oriole remarked.
So, it might interest you that I am capable of making very loud sounds. If I were to make this loud sound, perhaps it would wake you up, and we could—
Assuming that I'm sleeping.
He interrupted.
Yes, assuming that, of course.
Oriole nodded with a smile.
I might be open to that solution.
Good, let's try it.
Before any objection could be raised, Oriole immediately let out a wail so loud as to cause small rocks to roll down the hill and the land to vibrate. When she was done, she looked at the dragon who had closed his eyes and held a frozen wince across his face. Obsidian very slowly opened his eyes, his expression dazed.
Still here,
He said.
but if it were true that I was in a dream, I most assuredly would have woken up. You surprised me. I can't even roar that loud.
Well then,
Oriole said.
the shared dream hypothesis can be scuttered. Is it possible our two worlds have an overlap right here in this place, where we can communicate from one species to another? We know that there have been contacts before. They're in our myths. Perhaps these were more than mere fanciful imaginations telling stories around a fire at night.
It seems impossible, yet probable.
Obsidian answered. his tone gloomy. Just at that very moment, something happened that threw their dialogue into a blustery wind. A creature suddenly materialized in the presence of Oriole and Obsidian. It was unlike anything they had seen before. It literally materialized in front of them.
Who are you?
The creature said, looking between Oriole and Obsidian.
Where am I?
There was a sense of acute panic in the creature's voice and mannerisms. It leered at Oriole and Obsidian as if they were monsters poised to annihilate whatever the universe brought them. The creature was enraptured by its sense of fear. There were signs of shock written all over its body. Oriole spoke first.
I am Oriole the Phoenix, and this dragon is called Obsidian. We just arrived here, in this place, just as you. We are trying to understand how this happened, and now that you have joined us, perhaps you have an opinion or idea as to how you ended up
Oriole put her wings out.
here.
The creature took a deep breath, its head swiveling in all directions.
I am called a human in my world, and my particular name is Joe. I come from a land called China. I have no idea how I came to this place or why. I am just here.
His arms went out, palms up.
It is good to meet you, Joe.
Oriole said, turning to Obsidian as if it was his turn to acknowledge their new guest.
Are you the apex species of your planet?
Obsidian intoned. Joe nodded.
We certainly believe so, but it's inconclusive in my mind.
Obsidian rumbled. Joe wrapped his arms around himself.
It's cold here.
We can make a fire.
Obsidian said. Quickly, he gathered some stray wood, and when it was properly assembled, he combusted it with a single, effortless breath, and a robust fire was made.
You know that fire was our very first invention.
Joe announced, as he stared wistfully into the roaring flames.
Your invention?
Oriole and Obsidian blurted out in chorus. The two emissaries looked at one another, and then Joe. Obsidian's eyes flew open wide.
We are fire. It was no invention. It is who we are.
Well, that is very good for you both. But it took my kind thousands of years to invent fire. We could capture it from lightning storms, but it was not something we could make on demand. We could not manufacture fire for a very long time.
And yet you say you are the apex species on your planet?
Obsidian said, almost unconsciously and in a bewildered whisper. Joe smiled as briefly as a raindrop fell.
There is no doubt that we are not the smartest of all creatures. Our most intelligent humans are quite certain that we use only a small portion of our minds and brains. We evolve. That is who we are.
Ah,
Oriole said.
you are of time, the vibrant kind, the kind that holds you in its grasp and never lets you go.
Perhaps.
Joe replied.
Time is not necessarily a bad thing, at least not as you imply it.
How is that?
Oriole returned.
We are evolving through time. Time is like a pathway for both the individual and the human race at large, and I suppose everywhere in between.
Obsidian softly growled. The three strangers were gathered around a large fire, and the sky was turning increasingly dark. It was clear that nighttime was drawing near, and the fire was a welcome source of both light and warmth.
So, time is what makes you who you are?
Oriole asked in a puzzled voice.
In a way, it's a complex world we live in. To evolve, you need complexity. The more complexity, the more evolution. The more evolution, the more complexity. They feed off one another until something evolves that knows it is evolving. This is who we are.
And you are quite certain that you found this place by accident?
Oriole asked. Joe studied his surroundings for a while before he answered.
I am, but whether it was by accident or by providence, I'm not sure.
Providence?
Obsidian repeated, his ears a bit perkier.
To what force do you refer to as providence?
That force that I cannot know.
Joe flatly stated.
Why?
Providence in my world is entirely dependent on the individual and their education. Some will call it God, Some will call it the universe, or nature, or Holy Spirit, or Supreme Being. It has many names, and all of them seem to have one thing in common.
And what is that?
Oriel asked, leaning forward a tiny bit.
They, this force, are all powerful. They define the laws of nature and they rule nature through these laws.
Oriel said.
And whatever this all-powerful force is, you cannot know it?
Exactly.
Joe replied. For whatever reason, Joe seemed to regain his composure as the two strange beings interrogated him.
Why not?
Obsidian asked.
If it isn't a made-up fairy tale, as I would suggest, why can't you know this force?
Because I am one thing, and it is all things.
Oriel sighed.
Something that is all-powerful and establishes the rules of nature must be all things. Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
Well, with a belief system like that, you will never know the truth of your illusion.
Oriel said.
the truth of my illusion?
Joe repeated, staring into the fire.
Odd words to put together, aren't they? And because you spoke them,
He turned to Oriel.
perhaps you can explain what you mean.
You said you cannot know this all-powerful force, and yet it is all things. Therefore, you are part of it. If you are part of it, then you can know it. And to think otherwise, you must be under the spell of an illusion. So, the truth of the illusion is that you are aiding and abetting this illusion.
For what purpose would someone aid an illusion?
Obsidian asked.
For the only purpose that makes sense,
Oriel replied.
you evolve in complexity. Therefore, the all-powerful force created rules that create ever-increasing complexity so that you would evolve to the point where you know you are part of it. What other reason would there possibly be?
Well, there are some of our kind that say we are in a simulation.
Like a game?
Obsidian asked. Shu nodded.
Somewhat, I suppose, we are observing our world through an interface, a human body. But the world outside of us is not real. It is a simulated world.
And who makes this simulated world?
Oriel asked. We believe it is someone who possesses technology far beyond our own. Thus, they are akin to us. Yet their evolutionary journey may span millions of years longer. They may have developed the ability to create worlds that appear utterly real.
And you are simply a program?
Obsidian said with thick cynicism. Joe nodded.
Perhaps we are all programs then, including this place. What a strange idea.
Obsidian half laughed, half growled.
So, in this scenario, you have transformed your omnipotent force into a computer programmer.
Oriel remarked, her wings gesturing as if encircling a fire.
But you have no reason to believe this. It's akin to postponing the inevitable, for behind the programmer must exist an omnipotent force. Ultimately, there must be a creator. All of us didn't simply materialize here by happenstance. You're correct in acknowledging this. We, this place, this fire, these words, they are not mere programs. I am not a puppet.
Obsidian shrugged.
Why can't it all simply be exactly what it is?
And what is that exactly?
Joe asked.
We are matter that has evolved into sentience. Your earlier statement regarding evolution aligns precisely with our beliefs, although we express it differently. We call it inventive exploration. It's our method of delineating the purpose of our various clans and their existence. We dragons are numerous, with millions upon millions of our kind organized into clans. Each clan has a distinct mission, to creatively explore the unique essence of their clan's nature. For instance, my clan is the Claw Clan. We are the epitome of strength, accepting only the most formidable dragons with the mightiest claws, the ability to breathe fire over vast distances, and the sharpest minds.
And what do you explore?
Power and how to control it.
For what purpose?
We are the defenders of our kind.
Who would dare attack you?
Precisely.
What can kill you?
Joe asked.
Only time.
None of your kind has died from an attack by another?
We can only kill one another. In the Claw clan, we have terminated a number of dragons that had, well, let's just say, bouts of disobedience to our rules. There are no adversaries in our world that can do us harm.
He leaned in slightly.
That's the advantage of being a dragon.
Ah, you are a warrior clan.
Joe said, in a sudden realization.
We are more than a warrior clan because we control the power of the dragon world. We are not simply foot soldiers.
I see.
Joe said.
But why do you want to explore power and control?
It is useful to all of our kind. Our clan is the alpha of our species. We have privileges in our world that others do not, and we have absolute freedom. Only those who know how to acquire and grow power gain more and more control over not only their own lives, but the lives of all others. That is why.
Joe turned to Oriole.
And what about you? What do you do in your world?
Oriole thought for a moment, drawing her wings tightly around her.
There is nothing special about me. I simply exist.
She's a philosopher.
Obsidian interrupted. Oriole gave Obsidian a quick and dirty look.
A philosopher of what?
Joe asked, undeterred by Obsidian's comment.
We don't have titles in my world. We don't live in clans. We don't see one job above another. If I'm a philosopher, then every single phoenix is a philosopher.
Do you think we're dreaming?
Joe suddenly blurted out.
I mean, dragons and phoenixes don't exist in my world. And from the way you reacted when I appeared, humans don't exist in yours. The only possible explanation is that I'm dreaming.
Obsidian stroked his chin.
Oh, we talked about all of the possible scenarios, and we're quite certain it is not a dream. You see, in our worlds, we have stories. Ancient stories of creatures just like you and her.
He tilted his head in the direction of Oriole.
The thing is, these stories always seem fabricated. Humans, walking on two legs, no wings, fragile land creatures, and all they ever did was build weapons more powerful than the next. That's how you think of us?
Joe bellowed.
Look at yourself.
Obsidian commanded.
You have these soft little bodies that are more delicate and vulnerable than our one-day-old infants. You need weapons to protect yourselves. I don't blame you, but your weapon-making culture has us dragons, and probably the phoenixes as well, only too pleased to avoid you.
In my world,
Joe began, hoping to change the subject.
we have scientists who believe there are many worlds or universes. Maybe this is how to explain it. That each of us comes from a different universe, and somehow Providence has placed us all together for a reason we've yet to discover.
A whirring sound echoed over the hillside. Suddenly, a light shone above them like a star, yet it was descending in a spiral motion, and the light itself, the closer it came to the ground, began to materialize into a creature with 2 legs and 2 arms. However, this was most distressing to the 3 beings gathered around the fire. It was hairless, genderless, without clothing of any kind, and seemed akin to the pupa of a butterfly, but with limbs and a head. Its body was largely transparent with a silver light that leaked out. All the facial features were intact, but behind them there was a transparent head. The creature was of an odd color, but in the encroaching darkness of the night, even with the flickering light of the fire, it was difficult to determine if it was blue or green, but it definitely wasn't human. Joe moved away from it, unsure of his safety in the presence of this new creature. The creature remained standing, arms by its sides, opposite Oriole and Obsidian, closest to Joe. It didn't seem threatening, and after another few seconds, it simply sat down on the ground near the fire, perhaps to show itself harmless.
What is happening to us?
Were the first words of this creature or anyone else around the fire.
We are drawn to your fire. We have never seen one before. It is mesmerizing.
The creature's head did not turn or move. It sat in a comfortable position and remained completely still, except for its thin lips.
We have heard about each of you.
It pointed at Oriole.
You are the eternal regenerative.
It then looked up at Obsidian.
You are the power of the sky,
Finally, it pointed at Joe.
and you are the feeling receptor of a universe.
The creature seemed to smile, satisfied it had not caused any dissent in its assertions.
How can you know us?
Joe asked.
We have access to a very large database of information about every species in our known galaxy. It is what we like to study, especially the ones that accumulate legendary status, as each of you has.
Who are you, and what is your name?
Oriel asked.
We are a collective of beings from a star system that none of you have the means to observe, so to give you a name would be meaningless. As for our name, you can refer to us as Swan Dot. I will ask again,
Swan said.
what is happening to us?
Oriel cleared her throat, a subtle cue that she intended to speak.
We haven't the faintest clue as to why we've been gathered here. Here, on this nondescript hillside, in a world that somehow harmonizes our differences to the extent that we can all communicate in a shared language.
Do each of you feel like you are in a dream?
Swan asked. A chorus of yeses came in response.
And you have decided it is not a dream because you cannot wake up despite how real, how foreign, how impossible it all is.
They all nodded. Yes,
If you cannot wake up, then it is real.
Swan said.
We are quite certain it is real, which is our way of saying that there is a real purpose. Things that are illusory do not have a purpose in the same way as things that are real.
How do you mean that?
Oriel asked.
If this were a dream, its purpose would be inward facing, viewed from a first person perspective. Each of us would merely represent the subconscious of an individual. In such a scenario, the purpose serves only one, and that person may not even remember or grasp the lesson embedded within the subconscious. It's merely an expression, a theatrical performance staged by the subconscious to draw attention to itself. And this act of drawing attention is indeed its purpose. However, if this is real, and we are each our own selves, operating in a calculation of space-time, then it carries a different purpose, a real purpose, and that we must discover. For all we know, the four of us could be asked to change the worlds we live in.
All those gathered around the fire fell into a contemplative silence, their attention captured by the dance of the crackling flames. Time seemed to suspend itself for a moment as they allowed themselves to be immersed in the soothing warmth and gentle flicker of the firelight.
Assuming you're correct, how do we do that?
Joe asked.
We invoke it.
What, the purpose?
Yes.
How?
Oriel asked.
How much time has transpired since you came here?
Soin asked.
About an hour.
Who came first?
Myself and Obsidian, the dragon, came at the same time, and then Joe came shortly thereafter.
Think hard now. Each of you must tell me what you believe is your inmost quality. That is the rarest quality within you. You first, human.
Joe stuttered initially.
I don't really know that I have an inner quality that is rare.
We said the rarest quality within you. What is it?
There was a tinge of impatience in Soin's tone, but an equal sense of encouragement.
I'm emotionally stable. I suppose that's my rarest quality.
Good. Oriel, you're next.
I do not fear death.
Good. Obsidian?
I am a strategist.
Excellent.
What about you?
Oriel said.
We are many.
What does that mean?
Oriel asked.
We are not a singular identity with a singular talent. We are a collective identity with collective talents, which I, this body that you see, can access once we determine the purpose of why we are here.
Soen paused and pointed to Obsidian.
You do realize that we are not here by accident.
Without even a pause, Obsidian responded.
I've considered it, but clearly I am not as confident as you in this presumed fact.
And so, as a strategist, what does our condition tell you?
Obsidian closed his eyes. As he spoke, his eyes never opened.
We defy physics, or none of us would be here in a shared reality. We have been chosen to meet. Our meeting serves a broader purpose than our singular lives. We have grappled with the reason why we are here, but we have not sought the purpose of an action other than to return to our previous and normal state. He opened his eyes on the last word.
Well said.
Soen replied.
And why do we run from a possible higher purpose?
We feel fear.
Joe offered.
I have no fear.
Obsidian said with a smile.
I am simply uncomfortable with the idea that someone or something moved me from my normal path. It is that simple.
His tone became angrier the more he spoke.
No one takes my freedom away. No one decides my future but me.
Oriel was nodding.
Exactly. Who presumes we want a higher purpose? My free will has been stolen. That's how it feels.
She turned to Soen.
And you, who just came and are already telling us what we should be focused on without so much as a dialogue or vote, who are you? All we know is that you claim to be many. Perhaps you're the reason we are here.
There was a tiny accusational force that accompanied her words. Soen stood up and began to pace behind Joe, about 5 meters from the fire.
We will forgive the implication of your words. We know you are under stress in this situation. We think we all need to listen to Obsidian's words. What is the action we want to take? Until now, all we have done is talk. We are always inclined to action once we have considered strategy with a scientific process.
Here, there is no science until we take action, and this...
What if new creatures continue to drop from the sky?
Joe asked.
Doesn't that change our actions?
Are you suggesting we sit around this campfire and talk, waiting for the next entity to manifest?
Soen asked. Joe shook his head. He turned around to face the pacing Soen.
What do you suggest?
Have any of you searched the land and sky?
Soen stopped pacing and seemed to face all of them.
No.
That is what we are suggesting. Make a search plan. Gather data. Bring this data back here so we can integrate it and then make our next decision on our course of action. Inaction only brings doubt. Doubt is like the fog. You move slow or stay inside yourself.
Soen is right,
Obsidian announced.
We need a search plan. I will take to the skies in the south and west. Oriel, you can take the east and north. You two can split up the land similarly. Don't go too far, but be thorough in your assessments if you see anything that could be an asset or a piece of the puzzle we find ourselves in.
It is a good plan. Thank you, Obsidian.
Soen walked a few steps to Joe.
I will sweep the land to the north and east, and you take the other half.
Perhaps this is a stupid question.
Joe began.
But what is north here?
They all laughed at the sudden realization that none of them had an absolute sense of direction. They had to create it and agree to it. Soen walked up to the fire, a stick in hand, and began to draw lines, bisecting the fire in 2 places. Next to each line, he wrote a single letter, NWSE.
Do we agree?
They all agreed to the arbitrary but necessary definition.
Let's not waste time then,
Soen said.
Let's plan to return to this very spot after we are done.
Joe cleared his throat.
Is anyone hungry or thirsty?
They all shook their heads. No,
Isn't that odd?
Joe observed.
Usually when I really tune into my body, I can find something I need to do. My body is sending me signals of one kind or another. Here, I have no signals.
He looked down as if he was trying to see himself.
I see my body. I definitely have one, but it sends me nothing. Is that how it is for you as well?
He looked expectantly at his cohort. They were all nodding.
And another thing,
Joe said.
we are going out to search in the darkness, without light. We will not be able to see. Whatever kind of data will be brought back, it will be incomplete.
Are you suggesting we wait until the morning?
Soan asked.
Yes, we should wait.
Joe answered.
Besides, more entities might pop in, giving us more insight and data collectors.
I agree with Joe.
Oriel said.
Let's wait for the sunrise, then we can take action. In the meantime, we can each refine our plans so when we leave, we are properly prepared.
Do you agree, Obsidian?
Soan asked.
My vision operates well in sunlight or starlight.
He glanced up.
There's enough starlight here. I can fly and still collect good and accurate data.
Then go. I am the same. I can see fine in starlight. Let us travel in an outbound spiral motion, while Joe and Oriel tend the fire and welcome any new guests that might appear. We will consider this preliminary data. In the morning, we will undertake our real search in the light of day. All of us. Are we in agreement?
They each nodded. Oriel whispered, yes. With that agreement, Obsidian stepped back from the fire, turned away from his newfound friends, released his 20-meter wingspan, and began to fly away into the night. He hadn't gone far when he completely disappeared into the inky blackness. Soan stooped toward the fire, pulling out a large branch of wood. The end was burning bright.
For warmth,
Soin said, and walked away into the night. Joe and Oriel stood watching each of them leave, lost in the mystery of their impenetrable plight or chosen higher purpose. Which it was unclear, but with Soan searching the land and Obsidian the skies, they each felt a glimmer of hope for the first time. Not that they would finally go back home, but that they would have some understanding as to what brought them to this place and why.